Hey Raleigh, paying too much for your wireless bill is not cool, which is why millions of people have switched to Sprint this past year. To celebrate, you can save 50% on most Verizon rate plans when you switch to Sprint. All this on the Sprint network, which is faster plus more reliable and has better coverage than ever. Why wouldn't you switch today? Hurry, visit a Sprint store or Sprint.com to learn more. Limited time only, offer coverage not available everywhere. Excludes taxes, surcharges, add-on, and premium content. Subject to new line port-in, activation fee, and credit. See website for eligible plans. Savings until March 31st, 2018 after pay full amount. Restrictions apply.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 8 o'clock on Sunday night. You know what that means. It's time for the Dirt Talk Hour. I am your host, High Side Damian Bean, and we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. Things kind of got jumbled up on us at the last minute today with some last-minute guest cancellations, and left us kind of scratching our heads as to what we were going to do. And we come up with an idea, and we were gung-ho about it, and we thought about it, and we decided to go ahead and run with it since the topic is fresh in everyone's mind. Again, this is the Dirt Talk Hour brought to you by 110 Nation Sports. Got those guys over there, everything that they do, just celebrating their 5-year anniversary. We would not be on the airways without them, and also without the help of our show sponsor, YellowCautionFlags.com, with Chris Creighton down at the Hattiesburg Speedway and Why Not's Motorsports Park. Can't thank him enough for everything that he does. The folks over at the I-95 Network for the syndication throughout the week, thank you for helping to get the Dirt Talk Hour out there. And we got a special topic this evening. We're going to be talking about safety in racing. And we've also got a special co-host with us this evening, another Dirt Talk Hour alumnus. He was on the show, one of the very first shows, as a matter of fact. And
yes, he was.
Yeah, he was bitten by the bug, and he's trying to get into the media side of things. So he's going to co-host with us.
I think he's been promoting himself pretty well, Damien.
Oh yeah, he has too, man. So let's welcome back to the show in the announcer seat tonight, Mr. Kenny Carroll. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Oh, we are finer than frogs here, buddy. You guys have gotten your season started down there at the Lucas Oil Speedway, man. How's it going for you so far early in the 2016 season?
Well, I tell you what, they're beating me around pretty good this year. I think they got tired of seeing me do good, and a lot of the old-time, really successful guys have come back with new equipment, and they are on point. They've made it pretty rough. I think I've had a 6th, a 7th, and an 8th out of the first 3 nights. But, you know, that's one of the special things about Lucas Oil Speedway. You're racing the very finest there. And we got some rule changes with our 2-barrel versus our 4-barrel. It's noticed a little bit of a curve. It's kind of changed how we need to drive, and that's never been my style. So I'm having a stretch, but we'll get there.
Oh, yeah, man. I have no doubt in my mind you've got the success, and it's proven throughout your track record that you guys are always able to overcome and do what you got to do to make it happen. But
I'm addicted to playing Kenny Carroll on the dirt tracking game. I don't know about y'all, man, but I think that 94 is hooked up. He's got to be a cheater.
Oh yeah, guaranteed.
Hey, Chris, how's your week been, buddy? What's been going on down south?
It's been pretty good. We took a lot of rain in at the early part of the week. I rode into the racetrack about 4 o'clock Friday afternoon, and man, it was cloudy. There was rain everywhere, north, south, east, and west of us. And Mr. Donald Parker always does a great job down there at Hattiesburg Speedway. Try to put on a good show for the guys. Back a couple of years ago, racetracks rained out every weekend, and Mr. Parker decided he would push the envelope, and has been ever since. Unfortunately, it was one of those lost causes. We didn't have a good car count, and fans were kind of shied away with the weather and all. But I tell you what, when you roll into a racetrack at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, and you see the grader out there just in tearing up the racetrack, you start asking yourself, how do we get this thing going and keep it on time? And I tell you what, 3 cars got down there, and we packed the track in as he was tearing the bottom side up, and we got it sealed back up within about an hour and a half of each other. The track was extremely fast all night long. It held a lot of moisture, but definitely was a night to remember and reflect back on. It's unfortunate. Promoters want to go so hard and they want to get in the show And I think that builds a lot of confidence up in the racers. But in this situation, I guess the confidence wasn't there, and so the promoter actually hurt in the end. And, you got to give it to these guys who go out there and give that kind of effort to run when they're against the odds. I mean, it is a risk, and sometimes it bites you. But other times, it comes down to just wanting to give the guys a place to race. And if everybody else is rained out, you got the true diehards that do always show up at your gates.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about what Mr. Kenny Carroll's got going on. As I said, he's making a guest co-host spot with us this week. He's going to be hanging out with us all show. And what happened, Kenny? Did you come on the show and get bit by the media bug? You got your own little thing you're trying to get off the ground, and I got to say, your pilot episode was it was really good. It had the humor, it had the information, it was entertaining. It had me watching the whole time, man. How'd this come about for you?
Well, it's something that I've always been interested in, radio work and stuff like that. It's completely out of my wheelhouse, so it's totally something new and different, and therefore it's a little exciting, and there's a lot to learn there. I have an incredible sponsor, Sean Cobra from Big Planet Media, and me and him have talked about it forever, and I finally we got talking and said, if we're going to do something, let's either do it or quit talking about it. So, we've been talking about it forever, and then your guys' deal, I really enjoyed that and got a kick out of that. And the bottom line is, there's got to be easier ways of making a living than running a back door at dump truck all day. And I'm almost 40, and I don't want to do this forever. I'm just trying to figure out what's the easiest way to make a good living. I want to be like you guys, rich up on the high on the hill. You know what I mean?
Wait a minute.
It's a long time to get there, brother.
Who sent you that memo?
If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, if winning was easy, everybody would do it. That's for true. But Kenny, I mean, you're doing a great job. And like Damien said, I mean, that is a heck of a little show that you got going there, and we're going to look forward to tapping into that too and watching you.
Well, we're going to work on it again tomorrow night. It's kind of going to be our Monday night things, I think. Right now, we're just playing. We don't know whether to make them short and funny or try to make them the right length for some kind of TV deal. I hate to be forward and be dreaming too big, but I think there's a little cable network that's supposed to be talking to Sean, actually. So I don't know if that'll go anywhere or not. Who knows? But, all it takes is a little bit of time. And if you can make something out of it, why not give it a shot? Who knows where it could end up?
Have you guys got a general direction? I know you're saying you're not sure if you want to make it funny or lengthwise, but have you sat down and really given any thought to kind of like a pattern as far as some consistency? Looks like maybe show topics or segments or things you want to talk about throughout the week. Have you given anything like that any thought? Because I'm telling you firsthand, and Chris can tell you as well, whenever you sit down and you're trying to do everything from come up with the show, develop the segments, the links for the segments, do your recruiting, do your research, your prep work. There's a lot that goes into it.
Hey, don't scare him now. We may work for him one day, Damien. Come on.
Hey, no problem. I spent the whole afternoon last week and made a little outline, which we immediately thrown it out the window and kind of went with our gut.
That'll happen.
But the main direction I want to go with is I feel like NASCAR has been over-publicized a little bit, and everybody's just got a little too fancy. But once you get to that point, you start losing fans. Well,
right.
Then the next big thing was the Bloomquist and the killer, really bad, the really good late model guys. Well, I feel like they're on the verge of that as well. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying I think that now is the time that if there's ever been a time, that there is no shame in being a street stock diehard guy. It's a little bit more blue collar, and the game plan is right there. Just look at what the late model guys and the modified guys do. The USCMTS guys, there's a ton of them guys that have real good media, just like I do, and make them a little bitty short and 2-minute videos. And man, I love that kind of stuff.
Right.
I just think that right now is a really good time. Street stocks are no longer redneck hillbilly deals. They're $20,000 cars, for
That's
the rolling
exactly right.
car,
Right.
So I'd like to think I'm smart enough to capitalize on it. I'm not trying to invent nothing new. I just want to do the same thing everybody else is doing.
Right. And I like your vision as well. We've seen it, the change a few years ago when cars were no longer beat up junkyards. They were, shop built race cars. And
yep.
I think you've got a good vision there for sure.
Yeah, it's nothing new. It's nothing groundbreaking. But why not? I'm so lucky and fortunate that this is kind of it. I've run into the right people to do this with. Believe it or not, I used to be really, really shy, like in high school and stuff, and my business has forced me to come out of that a little bit. And what I say is I don't run equipment anymore. I run my mouth and my phone. So if I can continue that on, that's kind of my style anyway. So I'm ready to go with it.
Well, you've definitely got a good vision. You got the drive, and just listening to you talk, you're well spoken. You know what you want to say, and that's half the battle right there. As long as you can get what's running through your head out of your mouth in time before you trip over your tongue, you usually got it made. But that's not always as easy as it sounds. But
sometimes you have to draw circles on
success.
notepads and draw little squares and stuff off the side of it so you can remember which topic is. I mean, it's crazy. Welcome to when you find out it's real work, you'll go back to driving a race car. I promise.
Yeah. No, I'm sitting here with 3 notebooks and half a dozen electrical devices, so in case one thing goes down, I can pop back in. So I'm trying to be prepared.
And that's one thing I have noticed about you, Kenny Carroll. You really are on your social media side. You really are on your self-promoting side. And a lot of drivers can take notice from what you're doing and capitalize on that as well, because I'm telling you, a lot of the attention that you're getting is because you're not afraid to work in the public.
Well, back in the old days, people do $100 sponsors, and that's just not hardly worth buying stickers. It won't hardly buy the stickers. Well, I just, I YouTube some sponsorship videos and some of those courses and stuff. I never bought them. I just watched them on Facebook and stuff every evening, and I tried to learn as much as I could, and I did really good this year. I did really good with my sponsors. Now, that forces you to go race. You can't get an attitude and say, by God, I'm going to stay home. So you've got to go race, and that's kind of part of growing up. But, I did pretty good. Everybody that's on my car it pays real well, and so I'm proud of that. And it's just because I kind of changed my attitude about it. I try not to overdo my Facebook. I'm always afraid I'm going to do that. But I try to just limit myself to, one a day unless I'm racing or something, then you can kind of go farther. But other than that, it's just something I enjoy, and it's just a little bit extra effort, and, why waste a day?
Yeah. Excuse me. Every time I try to talk, my mouth just seizes up. It's officially getting to be spring here in the Midwest, and I know, Kenny, you're probably an allergy sufferer like I am. It's been bad up here for the last week, and it's kind of starting to get me. So bear with me a little bit. But let's get on to the topic at hand for the evening, and it is a touchy one, and we want to address and handle this as we talk about it with as much dignity and respect as it deserves. And I'm sure, as most of you know by now, there was an accident over the weekend at the Southern Ohio Speedway involving Charles Floyd, and he was involved in an accident involving fire. And any race car driver can tell you that of everything, any possible scenario that can possibly go wrong or happen to them while they're racing, the thing they fear the most is fire, because you have no control over fire. And he was involved in a pretty nasty fire. He's not doing very well, so we're definitely thinking about you and your family and sending our well wishes and our prayers, as is the entire racing network across the country, because dirt racing is one big family. We all stick together and we all take care of our own, and he needs all the support and all the help he can get right now. But we got Rodger Bennett going to come on here in a little while, who is the founder of EMSS, and what they do is those are the guys in the bright yellow suits you'll see at like Lucas Oil Speedway, who are considered some of the best track emergency personnel in the country at one of the finer facilities in the country. And Kenny, I know you race there on a weekly basis, and you get to see these guys in action. I mean, do they live up to the hype, or are they as good as everyone says that they are?
No, buddy, they're first class all the way. They usually get a spot in our drivers' meeting at the beginning of the meeting. But everybody there is very glad to see them. You know, back when I started racing 20 years ago, you know, there's lots of places you went to. You know, just the flagman had a great big fire extinguisher to see. These guys have 2 or 3 trucks at all times. They are in, even when it's 110 degrees, they have every bit of their stuff on. They at all times we're on the track, they are fully clothed and ready at all times. They, you know, it's one of them things you take for granted. You don't think about it until you need it. But these guys are top notch, and they do a very good job.
Right, and that's what tonight's show is all about. You know, we are in a privileged position, being media, where we are in a position to educate people by having contacts in racing and knowing people who work in the industry, and we're able to bring that to you to try to take a negative situation and turn it into something.
And, of course, make it a positive. Exactly, Damien.
Right.
And believe it or not, I talked to a driver this week that was right out of the door. They wanted to know what was going on, and he said, you know, and this is a top-name driver. This is a championship driver now. He said, you know, Chris, I don't even have an efficient fire extinguisher in my car. And I was really shocked by that. And so I don't know what he plans on doing after that, but, you know, for him to come out and acknowledge the fact that he didn't believe that he had an efficient fire extinguisher in his own car, just once again reflects back to this is an eye-opener, and there's definitely a negative side that nobody wants to go down that road. And then there's the positive side of we can be the outlet for information. And we would rather know what we can do to prevent this than to actually push too much of the issue of why it happened and how it happened.
Right. Yeah, and we decided to put this show together, and what we did is we reached out to our Dirt Talk Hour family, drivers who have been on the show before, and we asked them if they would like to come on and kind of give their perspective on a driver's point of view of this kind of a situation. And Chris was just speaking of championship drivers, and our first guest is definitely that and then some. Bobby Pierce, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, you're coming off a pretty good weekend, coming off a second-place run at Tri-City Speedway, and then you go up to 34 Raceway there in Burlington, and, man, if you don't go home with a Slocum 50 win, man, you had a pretty good run up there.
Yeah, it was a great run, and it was great to finally get a win for the year. You know, seconds are great, but just to finally knock off the win, you know, you're a lot more confident going into the next race. And a lot of the nerves are kind of, you know, off your shoulders, I guess you could say. And there's also the superstitious side of things where you think of, you know, what am I doing wrong and all that. And just luckily it worked out, and we'll go on to the next race with a more confident mindset.
Hey, buddy, this is Kenny Carroll. Where is your next place you plan to go?
We might take this weekend off because there's not a whole lot going on. And then the weekend after, in 2 weeks, there's going to be the Lucas races around here, Macon and Tri-City.
Yeah, those things have really turned into it. They've turned that series around to where it's running pretty good. Have you noticed the car count coming up or staying steady, or how much has it changed?
With the Lucas?
Yes.
I think it'll be about the same. You know, I know that there's always a handful of drivers from Illinois that'll be there, and you know, of course, with the Lucas bunch, I think Lucas is probably one of the toughest late model series there is, so you'll have a lot of good competition. And as far as car count, not really sure, but enough is enough. You know, I think competition is crazy how it is, so there's definitely going to be a ton of cars.
It's crazy how everything to do with them is so incredibly competitive. And from what I've seen, even in their product, not to put a plug in necessarily, but, you know, if it's got that name on it, it carries a little bit of a weight, and it's a good thing. You know, even at our home track, Lucas Oil Speedway, the competition level in every class is crazy. You know, you can win one night and not make the race the next night. And even in the street stock class, which is mine in particular, that's how it is all the time now. So I can't imagine doing it at your level. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty tough, times, and we kind of try to venture out to all the big races that we can and not really follow a particular series. But there's always a bunch of races going on around the area of Illinois and kind of the surrounding states that we can go to each weekend. So, ever since I was even little, when I started out racing, my dad kind of wanted me to venture out and, go to as many different racetracks as I could and get all the experience that I could. So it definitely helps doing that.
Absolutely. Now, Bobby, we're talking safety this week, and I'm sure you're aware of what happened this past Friday night out there in Ohio, man. As a driver, from your point of view, when you see something like that, I mean, what goes through your mind? I mean, putting yourself in that position, thinking, man, that could be anybody, and what would you recommend as a driver and as a facility that we could do to assure that things like that don't happen anymore?
Yeah, well, my first thought was, that's just it's terrible, and I start thinking of, like you say, it could be anybody, and the whole deal about that is you start to look at how safe you are in the cars, and you start going through the checklist, how safe you are in the seat itself, and with the roll cage and how the cars are built, and you don't really ever think too much about that, with the whole fire thing. And at one point, I did run a fire extinguisher in my car where I could pull the pin and then pull a handle, but we haven't had that in my car in the past couple of years, so I don't know, but it's definitely crazy to think about. And I know at most places the safety crew and everyone, they're there pretty fast, but I'm not sure if what the deal was there. But kind of just think about it in that sense, and it's kind of scary, but then again, we're racers, and heck, it's the whole thing about racing is you could wreck any time, and it's kind of just in the back of your mind a little bit, but once you're racing and stuff, it kind of gets blocked out, and stuff like this kind of makes you realize it again, and you start thinking of what I could do, and maybe go the extra mile for safety in your car.
Now, you say you used to run the fire extinguisher in the car, but, and when I think about something like this, and I see things that could be improved upon, and ideas that can be implemented. When you go, things like this do not happen often. They are a rarity in the sport, but they do happen. Now, you take back in the early days of racing when everything was evolving and people were experimenting, and we didn't have the safety standards up to par where they are now. This was a more frequent deal pretty much anywhere across the country. You could see something like that happening a lot. But with the innovations that have come along, I mean, I think complacency maybe comes into place, and not in a sense of laziness. It's just that it doesn't happen that often, and people take that mindset of, this isn't going to happen here, it's not going to happen to us.
Right. My question is there something right out of the door that we can do to prevent this? Is there an extra door hatch that we can put into cars for a quick release for the driver, or in what innovative way, maybe something that may be far off right now but could actually be twisted and innovated into the cars to keep this from happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing to fix it would be certain rules. I know that back in the day the cars were not as aerodynamic, you could say, and now with all the aerodynamic stuff being brought about, cars are starting to have these big old left side on the deck panel there. They're starting to build them up, and there's little gaps. You look in the cars and there's little tiny gaps where the driver fits in there, and I'm a very small dude, so we try to make mine almost as small as possible to keep all the air in there. And, I don't know, maybe series could start enforcing rules where that needs to be bigger, and you need to have fire extinguishers in your car. And I'd say that would kind of be the main thing, because if you don't really enforce it with rules and whatnot, then people aren't really going to do it.
Right. Now, as you think about these things and everything that goes into it, do you have a preset ritual? Have you run over drills in your head, things that you need to do to stay calm in an instance like that? I mean, have you ever put yourself through a mock scenario of what you would do in that situation, or do you think it's one of those deals where it's such a terrifying ordeal that you don't know what you would do?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of sketchy to think about, but there's been a couple of times, I flipped at Lincoln and I flipped at Tazewell on a late model, and both times I was stuck on my lid. So,
right.
I'm sitting there and, blood's rushing through my head, and, the first thing I did both times, because my dad, told me this time after time, is the first thing, if you're flipped over, you're flipping turn the motor off, turn all the switches off, is the first thing. So, I do that, and then I kind of try to stay calm, but it's kind of hard, when you're sitting there and you're looking around and you're hoping other cars don't come by and hit you and whatnot. And, but, the best thing to do is, like you say, go through that stuff. And, there's been times before when I was younger, my dad would make me practice getting out of the car safe and fast. And I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely crazy to watch. But, going back to it, you think you might start carrying a fire extinguisher in the car now?
Yeah, we think about it. I know today, everyone's always trying to see how fast they can go, and weight is always an issue, and fire extinguishers don't really weigh that much, so I guess we could put one in the car.
Absolutely. What do you think about your season so far, man? I know we talked last time you were on the show. You were excited to get going and try to back up what you did last year, man. So far this year, are you living up to expectations? Are you on the right track?
It's been all right. Florida wasn't great, which it never really is for us. It's just such a tricky. The dirt's just so weird down there. It's kind of sandy dirt and not really very good at it. But when we went back home and almost won at Florence, but I had a right rear flat, and all the other races from there, I've had top fives or second place runs, and then finally knocked off a win. So hopefully they can just keep coming.
It seems like whenever you go in a dry spell without a wind, it's really tough to wonder when that next one is. Is there anything you do to prepare yourself to make sure you're giving it 100% whenever you roll out there?
Yeah, I mean, I know that almost every time you finish a close second, especially in the big races, like the Illini and the Fall Brawl, I finished second in. You kind of go into the next race even more prepared than you were in the last one. Heck, lately I haven't had a crew guy, so it's been me and my dad mainly, and then my sister, she drives back home from Kentucky where she's living and helps out with some tires and stuff. So just making sure your car's in tip-top shape. You don't want to be winning the race that you haven't won in a while and then break, or something go wrong. So that's about the worst thing that can happen is, you're going to win the race and then last lap or something, a J-bar breaks or whatever it is. So that's always something, too, that's going through your mind as a driver, especially this past yesterday at the Slocum. I hit a huge hole with about 5 to go, and I think something broke in the rear end. I wasn't sure, and I was just praying to God that it would stay together. So, but, just maintenance on the car, and it's, racing is a mindset thing, too. You don't want to get your nerves get to you and whatnot, so just stay calm, and if you're having good runs in big races, then you just got to be patient and know that the win's going to come eventually.
Let's talk about
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Kenny. Go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, mindset is 100% of the deal. If you're confident you're going to beat these guys that's out there with you, you've got it in the bag. Every time we go out of town and race with all the really, really, quote, elite stuff, it's killer when you come back home. You're faster than you went when you left just because your mindset's so much better.
Yeah, and a lot of times, what my dad said back when I was first starting is you need to almost get beat by a lot so that way when you come back home, whether it's a local race or what, you're that much better because, racing with Lucas, Royal of Outlaws, or, any of the big shows, it just makes you a better driver with all the experience and that you're getting, so.
Bobby, this is Chris from Yellow Caution Flag, man. Tell us about those upcoming truck events that you got going, man.
Yeah, we got 3 coming up in May that I'm going to run, Kansas, Dover, and Charlotte. And I'm looking forward to it. It'll be with the Mittler brothers, and I'm going to focus on that and hopefully have some good runs. And not sure what my next truck race after that would be. I know I'm going to do Eldora, and hopefully we can win that thing.
Yeah, definitely. We look forward to seeing you at those 3 races. Let me ask you, have you wanted to run Talladega? Is that maybe in the near future as well? Or does it kind of go off of what you do in your other 3 events?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to run it. It kind of just comes down to sponsorship, and that's basically the main thing. And I'll race it anywhere, as long as it's only under one exception, as long as nothing's during the World 100.
That's
right.
All right.
That
now,
is
Bobby,
great
we know it takes.
you.
Yeah, that's right. We know it takes a lot of people to make all this happen for you, and we want to give you that time as always to give a shout out, and also throw the fans your social media feed.
Yeah, well, you can follow me on Twitter at BobbyPierce32. Same thing with Instagram, and check out my Facebook, and also my website www.bobbypierceracing.com. And look at my schedule, and maybe we'll have the T-shirt trailer at a couple events you might be at, so you can pick up some apparel.
All right, great to have you on the show there, man.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, I think we'll have our next guest in the studio here in just a minute, guys. Y'all are doing great, man. Me and Jason are sitting back and listening to this, man. It's as always, it's gold, man, and we appreciate you being on here, Kenny. You definitely added a little bit of flavor here tonight.
Well, I tell you what, the way you guys pass the ball around, if you got to stay on your game and be pretty intense, there's not much time for note taking. It's a good game on.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of prep work that goes into it, and there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that's actually going on during the live broadcast that people will never know that make the show what it is. And if you don't have that communication, I mean, it's a partnership, and without it, you're getting lapped. So.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's that discipline we bring to the table, man. It's all about being as entertaining as we can be. Now, I'm sure that we could sit here and talk about entertainment, but I guarantee you, this next guest, he's gonna brighten the table up, ain't he?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, given the tragedy that happened this weekend, it's safety is fresh in a lot of people's minds, and our next guest, he is the perfect man to answer the questions that are on everybody's mind is what can we do to implement everything that we possibly can to keep our fans and our drivers at our facilities safer and make sure everybody gets to go home at night. He is the founder of EMSS, and they're the guys in the bright yellow suits you might see out at Lucas Oil Speedway. And like Kenny had alluded to earlier, these are hands down some of the best in the business when it comes to on-track safety as far as response and being prepared and knowing what they need to do. So let's bring him into the mix a little bit. Rodger Bennett, how are you doing this evening, sir? And thank you for taking the time to join us.
I'm doing great, sir. Thanks for giving me a call. I really look forward to visiting with y'all about what we get to do.
Oh, absolutely. Without what you guys do and the innovations that you have implemented into what you guys do, it's just groundbreaking. Tell us a little bit about what EMSS is and where you got the concept for it.
I've been a paramedic for 27 years, and we started this company, Emergency Medical Standby Staffing, about 15 years ago when I noticed that we needed people at different events. We do a lot of different sporting events. I started actually in motor cars at drag races, and then I started doing some research into stock car tracks and noticed that not a lot of people were covering those. They only had ambulances at the events. And watching those races out there as just ambulance personnel, I noticed there wasn't any proper fire people out there. It was usually a guy in the tow trucks with some fire extinguishers, and I thought to myself that would be a good way to go. And so I started doing the research about the fire suppression equipment being used, how we need to extricate the people, the proper gear that we need to wear to make sure we're safe so we can keep the drivers safe. And it just progressed from there. We started with Lucas Oil when they started 10 years ago. This is 11 now. We also cover Springfield Raceway in Springfield, Missouri. We've been covering them for 10 years. And we picked up a small track in Lebanon, Midway Speedway, about 4 years ago.
Now, what do you contribute the success and everything that you've implemented into this into? Is it your diligence? I mean, I know you say you've done the research. I mean, what is it that sets you apart?
It's attention to detail. It's paying attention to what's going on in the track. It's all about, my KISS method is keep it safe and simple. You've got to keep your eyes on the cars. You can tell what's going to happen to each car or a future incident that will happen by paying attention to the drivers of the cars. Maybe the damage that's been happening, or if they're actually broke, you can tell what's happening. Then from that point on, we just kind of watch. And a big part of it is the rapid response. We're using ATVs to get out there. And as long as we have good cooperation from the drivers to get into the track to the driver that hit the wall or entangled with someone else, that's the biggest thing. We get there quick. We make sure there's no fuel spills or any other spills. Make sure there's nothing that's going to ignite it, and then we dilute it down if there is. And we take care of that driver, make sure he's safe so everybody knows within a matter of seconds that driver's fine. And then we continue on for his safety.
And one of the big things that you guys specialize in, and you are a leader as far as in the industry of track emergency personnel, you guys specialize in fire rescue when it comes to strictly racing. And tell us a little bit about what you've been able to learn by that through your trial and error processes, and what should each racetrack know, and how can they help to be more prepared to better assist a driver who may be in a situation like we saw this weekend?
Well, there's a lot of small tracks around that, unfortunately, due to the amount of drivers they have, they don't have a lot of money to do this, although we don't charge a lot. This is not a high expense. So I prefer you go with professional service. That way you're covered. There's a lot of protocols that have to be covered by fire part, also medical part you've got to do by law. So that's why professional service is best. But if these tracks insist on not using anybody, they're going to have to make sure that the people are out there in their tow trucks, if that's what they're going to use, they're properly geared up, and they got the proper fire suppression equipment. ABC extinguishers don't do that well. What we use is water cans. They're 2.5 gallons. We've got cold fire in them, which is a water additive, and that water additive is built for racing. It encapsulates fuel, the alcohol molecules, also takes the heat away from the metals and from the fire itself. This is the type of blend it is. And it also has a little foam to it, so it smothers it. Fire works on three things: heat, fuel, and oxygen. So this cold fire takes that stuff away real quick. And you attack the fire where the fire's at. At that point, you just got to pay attention to what you're doing. And a lot of people get up there and adrenaline takes over. So they're not really paying attention to detail. They're not paying attention to exactly what's happening. And that's a big thing. If you can't control the emotion of what you're stepping into, you got to ask yourself a question: is this what you're supposed to be stepping into? And if not, let the professionals do it, or get involved with a professional service that can teach you to do that, so you can provide that at your local track too.
Well, hey Rodger, this is Kenny Carroll. I tell you what's impressive, if anybody was around just to watch, is when you guys speak at the drivers' meeting at Lucas Oil.
Yes,
when Dan is talking, everybody's still going to talk about things under their breath and stuff. But I've always been impressed. There's 2 times that everybody shuts up during the drivers' meeting. And that's when we're praying, and that's whenever you guys are talking. That's a couple things that I think everybody that's racing really takes serious. And we sure do appreciate the amount of manpower you provide, and it's obviously that you're prepared right then. It's not going to be here in a minute. It's ready right now. So I think everybody sure has noticed that.
Oh, that is great to hear. That right there gives me the warm fuzzies. That's what it's all about. I'm just glad during racing it doesn't happen, but when it's there, I'm glad you guys know and are comfortable that we're going to get you home. We're going to get you back to your family every night. That to us is that's what it's all about. And I appreciate the drivers listening to us, because there's some tracks when we try and get to the drivers' meeting that it just doesn't happen. But I do find the more we're in a drivers' meeting, the more we interact with you guys, the better off everything is. It works better on the track when we get up to you in a timely manner. you guys just let us know what's going on. We can get the show going to make sure you're safe. So it's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that from you.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Kenny.
Well, I said that's what it's all about. But I did that little thing where I raced the airplane here locally, and I know everybody on the local fire department, and we always joked around and buddied around and all that stuff. But when it come time to get serious, they were just a whole different person when they come to your car and say, "Show me how your Hans works. Show me how your steering wheel comes off," and everything about that to have everybody on the same page like that. I think that's key.
And I see something into that too. I want to reiterate back to what he said. When that adrenaline takes over, and that's just the key word right there. Some of these guys are just off from their mechanic shop, or they're just coming over from wherever they work from. They're down there. They're not even in a mindset to handle a situation like that. Not putting down the person who's down there, but a lot of times, it is in that situation where that driver may not be prepared. I mean, the flagman may not be prepared, or the safety crew, and so I think that the places around here have definitely done what they can to make fire maintenance, fire safety a main central education zone. Every January they have something at the Jackson Coliseum, and I think that maybe you might be interested in that as well, Robbie.
Where's that at?
At Jackson Coliseum in Jackson, Mississippi. I'll send you some information after the show and kind of give you a heads up on it. But it's a really good seminar and everything that's done for all the drivers around here. And it kind of goes into detail exactly what you're talking about, preparation for something that you're not expecting to happen.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. If it was, it's what's called an accident. We're never going to be prepared for it, but it is our actions afterwards.
Now, when it comes to the preparation of what it is that you guys do when it comes to fire safety, being the leader in the industry, if there's one thing that you could tell promoters and drivers who are listening to this right now, if you were in control of a sanctioning body and you were in charge of the rules and what you said was concrete, that's what is, and this is the way it's going to be. If you had to implement one thing for fire prevention at racetracks throughout that sanctioning body as mandatory, what would that be?
I really think it all would be access to the track. We do have some incidents where someone would go into the wall or get tangled up on the other side of the track, and we're on the infield. We can't get past the cars. They're not racing; they're under the yellow, but they don't always give us a spot to get across. That is time.
Right.
If it's you want us there, and sometimes they just don't spread out and give us those opportunities. So I would think our access, our quick ability to get there, will make a difference for everybody that's there, especially the driver knowing we're there. And if there is any type of fuel spill, we can smother it, dilute it, whatever we have to do to keep that from happening and taking care of the driver as quickly as possible.
Now, I know you guys also like to venture outside of just stock car racing. Your services are available to other forms of motorsports. Tell us what all forms of sports that you guys are involved with.
Actually, when I started this, I started with motocross. I live in the Springfield area, and there was about 5 tracks. So I started doing motocross, and a friend of mine got me into what's called hare scrambles. It's where they race through the woods. That's an adventure. When you get someone injured 2 miles in, and you've got to figure out a way to get them out, that's an interesting time. We also started with the drag strip down here in Rogersville. That's how we got into the cars, and that is a whole different thing compared to stock cars. The fuels are similar. It's just the ability to access those cars aren't as easy as they are stock cars. Luckily, stock cars are just you get up there and you can take care of things. Other than that, we started doing MMA fights. We do concerts. We do sports with figure soccer, rodeos, just about anything you can think of. We try and be there.
Now, when you take a look at the incident that happened over the weekend what do you take away from that? I mean, is there anything that you can sit there and analyze what happened there to implement into what you're doing now?
Well, without me being able to see the video of what happened, I have seen tracks before I started mine with just an ambulance sitting out there. They're not, maybe it's tow truck guys, they're not familiar with this. Maybe the volunteer firefighters, which, by the way, I give volunteer firefighters all the credit in the world for taking from their families for us.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't know if it's just not what they're prepared for. They're definitely not physically prepared because they're not prepared by dress. I don't know if that holds them back from wanting to get involved. But I'm hearing this took 3 to 5 minutes. That fire could have been put out, in my mind, without seeing it, a lot quicker by faster access. The quickest access and then the proper fire suppression equipment, which would be the water cans to knock that fire down real quick. And you've got to put the fire out at the ignition point would be at your fuel cell. So if you start, you'll have more than one person. You can hit the driver with it so that you're keeping the fire from them while someone's hitting the fuel cell. So if you'll see us at the track, you'll see there's 2 of us on ATVs that we can attack that way. And we got the truck coming out. When there's something like that, it's a red flag. So we got the truck as backup, and that man will grab a can. So we got 3 men with cans, and then we got a truck full of water also. So it's just getting there, recognizing where it's at, and hitting and putting out. Without seeing it, I can't critique. I just know how we would handle the situation. It's just a horrible situation that happened. That's all you can say about it.
Yeah. Now, when a lot of tracks, when they think about the cost, and when you look at racing, period, as a whole, that's the thing that comes up pretty much in every topic of every aspect of racing is cost just keeps continuing to rise and things of this nature. But for a service that you provide, I mean, is there ways that people can implement these tactics and still be economically and feasibly able to run a successful program every single week without having to worry about safety and being prepared breaking the bank?
It depends on who they work with. Like myself, I'm not getting rich doing this. I drive old, beat-up trucks just like everybody else. Our company does it the right reason, the right thing for the right reasons for the right price. I don't know there's not a lot of other companies out there doing it like we do. There needs to be more. If someone wants to contact me at EMSS2001@gmail, I'd love to talk to them some more. We can put a plan together. But if you don't do it with professional thoughts in mind as run it as a company with the right insurances and the right licensures, you're really holding yourself up for a big situation. Almost worse than if you just had your tow truck drivers there helping you out, buddies helping buddies. So that's why it's always better to go with a professional. When you call someone to work on your house, you make sure they're licensed and bonded. And that's just what I want to fall back on. I don't want to say that these tracks can't do what they're going to do because they're going to do it anyhow, but I want to see it as done as professional as possible, and it's not that expensive. Now,
one more thing I would like to ask you on this topic is, what are your thoughts on track preparation? Do you feel that all tracks need to put, especially their first responders, through the proper courses, get some training and train for different situations, just all across the board to better prepare themselves for what may lay ahead?
Oh, most definitely. Anybody that's been in racing for a length of time can just over and over see different crashes. And these bad crashes like that are few and far between. But, you always, you play the way, you always prepare for the worst. I would, to do that, I really need to talk to the track owners to find out where they're at now. It kind of lumps everybody up. I wish I knew more about this company. But if these track owners are interested in stepping up, they can call different tracks and see what they have and see how they're implementing things. I like what we're doing, being a subcontracted company, a company that's outside, because my standards have to be better. I don't want to lose a customer. I don't want to lose, I've got to hold my company as high as I possibly can for the right reasons, first of all. But, I definitely want to continue working with these guys. So working with an outside source instead of an interior thing, I think you'll get a better product. Because if you come to us, I'm always working on something different.
Hey, Rodger, how many people do you guys really employ?
Really? What was that question, sir?
I think how many people do you employ in your business?
Everybody's PRN. So I've got about 25 right now.
Gotcha.
They're not all firefighter EMTs. Like I said, we just had a few concerts. We had a taekwondo event this weekend. We cover a horse show this weekend. So we do a lot of different style of events. But right now we've got 25 people in employment as PRN status.
How big a circle do you try to cover? Central Missouri, or do you go out of state, or how big a spread do you try to take?
Actually, right now just Missouri. If as EMTs, we're licensed in each state. So for me to go to Kansas to work, even just one event, to do it proper, I would have to have a Kansas license. But what I can do is I can, as a company that sits here, I can hire EMTs in Kansas and have them work. So they'll have my standards in Kansas and Arkansas and places like that. We've worked all the way to Moberly. I've covered motocross in Moberly. The taekwondo event was in Kansas City. We've done boxing events in Jeff City. I try not to let, even Potosi we've done stuff, and not even raise my rate. I just want to get us there to give the proper coverage. So give me a call. I mean, and if I get enough work like in Jefferson City or Columbia area, I'll just hire a group of folks just from that area so that we put them to work. That way we don't have to travel. And that is awesome. It's what I'd love to do. But it's just it's getting my word out and getting people to give us a call so we can be there for them.
Hey, give us your contact info and stuff, how we can get a hold of you. I think we got our next guest getting close. So tell us how to get a hold of you so everybody can experience what it's like to have good people working on your side.
Okay. The best email for me would be EMSS, that's Echo Mike Sierra 2001 at Gmail. My Facebook is just under my name, Rodger Bennett, and you'll see my emblem as my profile photo. And then my phone number is 417-693-3941. Any of those would be a great way to contact me, and I'll contact you just as soon as possible from getting that message. We do have, by the way, a web page. It's not the most professional, but it does get the information out. It gets you contact with me and give you an idea, which is EMSstaffing.com. That's EMS, like Emergency Medical Services, EMSstaff.com.
All righty. Well, Rodger, we definitely appreciate the effort and the work and the diligence that you have put into EMSS and the tracks that you are now currently serving. I know that each one of those tracks feel like they have the absolute best in the business there to make sure that everybody, as you said, makes it home safe to their families. And we definitely do thank you for that. And I really thank you for being on the show tonight. I know it's a tough topic to talk about, but it's a thing that's fresh in everybody's mind. And we have the platform to help to educate people to try to improve upon this and move forward in a positive direction. And I think everything that you said with us here this evening, hits home and it hits the nail right on the head. And we all really appreciate you coming on and sharing your information with us. And I look forward to speaking with you again in the future, and we will definitely be getting all of your contact information on our media sites. And we wish you a lot of success with this, man.
Oh, thank you very much, and I do appreciate the opportunity to get out here and talk about this. This is a huge passion of mine. I've lost many nights' sleep trying to make sure that I can get it done right for everybody. And if you get anybody's up there at Lucas Oil sometime, for the races, if you're a driver, if you're just coming to watch, come down by the Tech Barn, ask for me. I'd love to meet you and visit with you some more, just so that we can continue the conversation, because it is so important. It really needs to get out there. And help these drivers to go home every night.
Absolutely. Again, we thank you for being on, sir, and we we will definitely get that information out there for you, and we are going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that you guys have a safe year out at Lucas and out at Springfield and out at Central Missouri, and know that everybody there is in good hands, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Remember, just keep it safe and simple, and everybody will go home. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely, sir. We thank you for being on. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Rodger Bennett. He is the man behind EMSS, hands down, and you heard it from one of the best in the country as far as street stock drivers, Mr. Kenny Carroll, who's hanging out with us this week, and he gets to see those guys in action each and every week out at the Lucas Oil Speedway. And if you're good enough for Forrest Lucas to put his stamp on and stand behind you, that's saying something. So we really appreciate him coming on and giving us his insight into his professionalism and trying to help get the word out there and make things a little bit safer. So good interview, man. You did really good there, Kenny. You're a natural for this.
Oh yeah. Hey, go easy on that. One of the best around. I'm just there to keep them guys honest. I'm not as far as the street stock deal goes. I do the best I can. I'm pretty average. I just got some really special individuals that help me out a ton, and I'm blessed that I got some pretty cool stuff to use. But there's a lot of natural talent out there that sure makes me look like a fool, and they've been doing it about 3 nights in a row. But we'll get back up there this season before it's over.
Absolutely, I have no doubt in my mind. As we continue on with our safety topic this week, when it comes to fire, there are no other class of drivers out there that fear fire more than sprint car drivers, whether it be full-blown 410 winged outlaws, non-winged USAC. I mean, sprint cars, these guys, that's the foremost thing on their mind when it comes to safety is fire. And we got a veteran of the open wheel ranks, another callback guest that we've had on the show. Jeff Swindell has always been a big and huge innovator behind safety in these machines from as far back as the 70s to present day that's still being implemented, and it came straight from the brain of Mr. Swindell, so let's welcome him back to the show. Jeff, thanks for taking the time to hang out with us this evening.
No problem. It's always good to talk safety with anybody. You never know who you might touch with it, and you might learn something yourself. You never know.
Absolutely. Now, we talked about the last time you were on the show that you were always really big into safety, and that's what you have always prided yourself on. When you take a look at something like the incident we had this weekend, I know there's no driver out there who doesn't have a bigger fear than fire. From an open wheel standpoint, when something like that happens, I mean, what do you guys do to prepare for that?
Well, I mean, there's only so much you can do. I mean, certain things are going to happen, and it gets kind of out of your control sometimes, But I mean, as long as you try to have good fire suits, good safety protection, and a good way to get in and out of the car, without obstruction, and that really, that's about all you can do, really. I mean, I think, getting the tracks more involved in being able to extradite somebody or get them out of a fire situation is really, really important. More so important than any other thing that the EMTs or the emergency crews are going to do. That's that critical and that time critical, because you don't have much time to work. If a guy's knocked out in the car, then he's at the mercy of his fire suit and gloves and shoes and everything until they can get to him and get the fire stopped from coming up around him. That's and it's real hard to get a guy out of a sprint car, even if it's sitting there flat. Doug Wolfgang got stuck in his car. He sat there long enough that they had issues getting the steering wheel off, and then I think Mark Kinzer and a couple other guys were trying to get him out, and I think really one of the biggest things is if the tracks could be prepared for that incident to happen. and be able to get in there and knock that fire out of the cockpit just as fast as possible. That's really about the only way or the quickest way to stop and end up with the least amount of injury. Because you can't, it's too hard for a guy to go into a fire and get a guy out of the car. That's just really almost impossible to do in a short time frame in any race car. So I think the emphasis really needs to be put on being able to stop that fire as fast as possible. I mean, they got water trucks. They have certain things that they can use. Something as simple as a truck that can back up with a hook and grab the car and move it and pull it to a situation to where it'll get the fuel that's coming out or whatever to go away from the driver. Just a few simple things like that can make a world of difference.
Hey, Jeff, this is Kenny Carroll. Hey, I know all the time we've been talking about all the stuff about putting the fire out after it happens, and I know there's tons of, innovative and slick ways of doing all that. But also, shouldn't we also spend just about as much time trying to keep the fire from starting to begin with? Whether it be a good cap on your gas tank can. I know some of the new fuel cells have the flapper in them, or even foam in them, should slow down how much it pours out. Plus, I don't know how many old plastic ones I've had that the fuel line going in and coming out just swings back and forth, so that can't be incredibly tight. So, I mean, is that something we all need to look at as well, don't you think?
Well, I mean, the first thing you can do is make sure your cap seals. I mean, that's just too simple. And then make sure that your shutoff will actually shut off when it's upside down. It's just a check ball is all it is normally what most people are using. And then when the thing gets inverted, the ball closes a hole and keeps it from coming out the air vent. That's the two simplest things that you can check and make sure you don't have a problem with. I know working Woody used to run around and he aggravated everybody all the time, but he would periodically, he had a little tank that he'd put water in, and he'd take a cap off and stick a cap in it, and he'd flip the thing over and verify that the cap was sealed off. That caught a lot of them. Caught a lot of guys stuff that was leaking or wasn't fit just right. But those are a few simple things that can stop that. Making sure that your fuel lines are running in a good spot to where they're not going to get cut by something. I think Wolfgang's biggest problem was they had a plastic fuel filter on the car and it split it, and that's what caused that fire. So, had there not been a plastic fuel filter on the thing, then it probably wouldn't have caused the fire. There's a lot of ways to go about it, but it's just common sense is the most part of it.
It seems like that's how about everything is the common sense seems to override overthinking just about anything. I know you've raced for several years, pulling back in the 70s. How much has safety really changed at your local dirt tracks between then and now? Is it about the same, or have they all stepped up?
Yeah, well, I'd say some probably have, and some probably haven't changed at all. Some may even be worse. And that's probably an issue that the only way that would get taken care of is if the insurance company, and I hate to say that, if the insurance companies would implement some kind of rules and regulations on certain things and how to go about certain things, or some type of certification. I hate to put burdens on racetracks and stuff like that, but a lot of them are out there just barely making it as it is. But the safety of everybody at the track, the fans, the pit crews, the drivers, everybody, needs to be taken into consideration. It's really something that I've never seen done, as far as that end of it. I don't know if it's just, the insurance companies play the odds and the tracks get away, some of them get away with as little as they can spend to do it, so it's, it's like in any part of life. There's people that really care and there's people that don't, so you got to kind of pick and choose, where you're going to race.
Yeah, and money oftentimes, rules everything. If you really had to pick one thing, is there any one particular innovation that's come about in the last, say 20 years that's a really, really good idea, or do you have any good ideas or dreams that you see coming down the road?
Well, actually, I've got a couple of things on the drawing board here, and I hope to start working on them probably here within the month. Some more, it's a different seat type design that hopefully is going to change the way we look at a few things. And it's pretty simple, I think, and going to be very easy to adjust to. We've got my safe seat mounts and everything out there now, and the universal shoulder belt mounts, which has become a pretty hot item now. I know Maxim and J&J push that to no end. I mean, they're doing a lot of those, and Jack Elam really pushes putting them on every car he builds. Whenever he can talk the guys into it. It makes it easier for the manufacturer because they don't have to, get every individual's measurements and put parts in to fit them. They can just build a universal part, and it's a one size fits all deal, and then everybody can put their stuff in the right place. So that makes a big difference there. But I think we're way behind on the seat issue on certain aspects. I think we've come way beyond where we were a long time ago in the seat aspect with the full containment seats now, which have made a world of difference. And the only real reason that came into effect is because they finally put a weight rule on the cars. Nobody would put the full containments on the cars because they were so heavy to begin with, and when the full containment came about. But with the add of the weight rule, then that made it feasible for the driver to say, okay, look, let's put this seat in here, we can save the weight somewhere else. We don't have to be down to 1,100 pounds, now. So that's probably one of the greatest things that's helped the sport of sprint cars anyway in a long time.
I can sure see how that would definitely do that. I know that the full containment seats have gotten really, really popular in all forms and aspects of racing. Honestly, that was something that you didn't used to hardly ever see on a local level, and almost everybody has it anymore. And they've just got to be so much of a better idea. Hey, buddy, how does somebody get a hold of you to try to get some of your stuff? How do we reach out and in contact to get your stuff?
Well, actually, all the seat safety stuff and everything I've done, I really didn't do that for sale. I pushed that to the manufacturers in order to get them to do it. I mean, I went out and did it, to one of my cars, and then got them to start building my cars that I purchased from them that way. And then they realized how smooth and simple that it was to do. So they do all that, and I kind of passed that on to them. And the reason was the fact that it's so hard to get the manufacturers the chassis manufacturers to change the way they're doing things, that there was no way that I could go sell them something to do that. I really didn't see that being a possibility. So most all that's going to be involved with the chassis manufacturers. But I have put up pictures and info from all the seat mount stuff that we've done and the proper seat belt use, and we should be using the 7-point belt systems instead of the 5-point belt systems. You need a 2-inch lap belt. It needs to be bolted in hardware-wise. You don't do the wraparound on the diagonal like we've done forever. I mean, there's so many little simple things that will make you so much safer in the seat, and it makes you more comfortable. Therefore, it's going to make you last longer in the seat without wearing out as easy too. So, jeffswindell.com. I've got contact ways up there to get a hold of me. Like I say, we'll be working on this new seat design here pretty quick, and hopefully we'll be able to get some pictures and parts and pieces out there like that. And, who knows? We may start working toward that business a little bit since the bleeder deal's taken off real well that we came up with there a few years ago, and so that's going really nuts right now. So that's pretty much all I'm doing. I hadn't even got to race all year, so. But anybody with any questions on any of that stuff or any ideas, I mean, I'm always open to ideas. I mean, they can contact me through the website there at info@jeffswindell.com is probably the easiest email address to get a hold of me. But, I'm easy to find.
Gotcha. Hey,
right
before
on.
we let you go, I think we got somebody that's got a question for you. Am I right?
Yeah, we got Rosie. She has a fan question for you, Jeff. Rosie, go ahead and ask Jeff Swindell your question. Hello, Rosie. Well, I guess Rosie lost us. You there, Rosie? I guess she lost it, but I can go.
She was there. Well, she hadn't dropped her call, but I didn't hear nothing either. She was still live, but I put her back on mute because I didn't hear nothing either. But hopefully we'll get her back on.
Well, if she can still hear us, I have her question right here in front of us. She texted the show. She wants to know, in your opinion,
Hold on. She just called back in. We'll give her one more chance to be able to ask that question. You there, Rosie?
Oh, okay.
You there,
Are you
Rosie?
with us, Rosie?
It must be at her end.
I guess not. But Rosie's question is, in your opinion, what is the best way for a track to completely be prepared for any situation that happens, even in the pits to the facility itself? I mean, what's a good baseline for safety that should be implemented nationwide?
Well, I think there should be a minimum of some type of instruction for any type situation. If you're going to have a safety crew at the track, which everybody should have, versus just letting a guy in and telling him to stand over here and hold this fire extinguisher, which happens, the track should go out of its way to bring these guys in and throw them into a situation. Okay? Here's a car. It's upside down. The guy's in it. It's on fire. What are you going to do? The easiest way to solve a problem is to do it not just in your head, but do it physically, run through the motions, and then at least you'll have some kind of an idea of how you're going to handle a situation. Just because a guy's a great firefighter doesn't mean he's going to make the right call when he runs in there on a situation with a car upside down, the guy hanging out of it. He's on fire, and it's they're not going to always know everything about a race car and how to handle it. If they could actually just take one day a year before you get started, bring your guys in, and throw 10 different scenarios at them. A person in the grandstand's injured. How are you going to get to them? How are you going to get them down? A person in the pits that's injured. This is what happens. This is what we're going to do. This is how we go about it. So I mean, if you run the crew through it, at least everybody has kind of an idea where they're going to go in a certain situation. And that's in anything you do really in life. The more you do it, if you physically do it, it becomes more natural to be able to handle the situation when you get to it.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, we definitely appreciate you coming back on to discuss this issue with us. And like I said,
it's no problem. Our prayers
after we
were
had talked
with the gentleman up there that in the late model there the other night. It's a horrible situation, but things happen. Life happens, I guess is what they say. I mean, it's not just racing. It happens everywhere, and it's rare for stuff like that to happen in racing, but when it does, it gets blown up, and I guess we all need to step back and look at what we can do to make it better.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, thank you for being on with us, sir, and being the innovator you are. I'm sure you're going to put one of those new ideas of yours to work, and it's going to help future generations stay safe from everything from fires to flips to everything we can possibly imagine. So I definitely appreciate you coming on such short notice and hanging out with us, man.
No problem, man.
Right.
Anytime. Let me know. Thank you.
Absolutely. Folks, that's Jeff Swindell. Always good to talk to him, and he's able to give a lot of insight into what these guys look into as far as safety from an open wheel standpoint. And when it comes to a bad situation involving fire, those guys are the ones that are really conscious about that, because when those cars get upside down, basically the way they're shaped, the fuel cell's right over the rear end of those cars, and those guys, when they're going so fast and they're carrying so much speed and momentum that when they get up on those brakes, I mean, it takes nothing at all to really heat those things up and get them red hot. And you get that ethanol on there, and the thing with that is it burns clear. I mean, it has to be super, super hot to really be able to see it. And it's in a bad situation. It's right over the rear end, which is tucked up right against the driver. So those guys are always thinking of new ways to come up with things to keep them safe from that. And I think Jeff hit the nail right on the head, Kenny. You ask him a question about one thing, and he goes right into, I'm already working on something, and that's Jeff Swindell. That's what he does. He's an innovator.
Yeah, that whole group of people, they spend a lot of time on that. And honestly, sprint cars have been around for so many years in basically the same size and shape and form that you could see how everybody could get their head together and come up with a good idea.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we've had a late model influence tonight. We've had an open wheel influence tonight from the sprint car side of things, and let's move on to a guy who can tell us a little bit about what that kind of situation and scenario might play out like inside of a UMP modified. Illinois native Bruce Malone joining the show. How you doing, Bruce?
I'm doing all right.
Hey, man, you've been spending some time at the Illini and Farmer City and all that good stuff this year. Tell us a little bit about how the 2016 season's shaping up in the heart of UMP country.
Oh, it's going pretty good. I was helping a buddy of mine's kid out every once in a while when I get a chance to. He ended up winning the crate feature, Dakota Ewing. He's a pretty good little driver and everything. But, it seems to be pretty good. Weather's holding up pretty well.
Yeah, we don't hardly get that in the Midwest here. Sometimes Mother Nature can be a cruel individual in the springtime for us. We don't know what she's going to throw at us, but, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, after about 30 years of going to the races, it always seems like the first 6 weeks get rained out.
Yeah, that or it's just really, really cold as soon as the sun goes down. But, man, we're talking safety this week, and I know you and I had talked a little bit about the incident that took place, and we had talked about what happened to Charlie a little bit, and definitely a bad situation. But from your standpoint, from a modified, I mean, have you ever been through a scenario like that?
No, I hadn't really been in no serious accidents or nothing whenever I was racing. But I have seen a lot of it from the years that I've been to the races and helped out and from the stands and driving push truck and everything else. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of it. And I think really that 2-week course is probably about the best thing to do during the winter time to get your guys trained for that stuff, at least. Like every day.
From your point of view, I mean, from a driver's standpoint, I mean, when you pull into a racetrack, what are some of the things that you are hoping to see and that you would like to see racetracks implement into their first responders?
Well, really, just have the safety equipment ready at every corner, and in the straightaways and stuff like that, and have your guys ready, and have plenty of help out there. Just like 3 or 4 guys. Sometimes it's going to take more than that. You never know. Maybe 2 or 3 cars up in there, up on fire, flipped over, or whatever.
Right. Now, in all your years of racing, now I know you're a fellow Central Illinois guy like I am, and you and I have talked quite a bit in length about the history and the roots in racing in our neck of the woods, man. Tell us why the racing in the Midwest is just what is it that makes the Midwest racing scene what it is, in your opinion?
I think it's because, you don't really have to travel so far to get to the track. You really can't beat the black dirt race on. And, you don't have to travel so far. And they got pretty good shows here and there. And whenever they have the big boys come in, they pretty much try to keep them all, from track to track easier to travel to. Stuff like that. And, kids get in free on most of the tracks, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It's good family entertainment.
Now, if you think back to all the years you've been doing this. I know growing up, you was right there learning with the Babs and the Shepherds and all those guys, because you all grew up pretty much right there with each other. I mean, when you think back throughout all the years, I mean, is there one instance where something really stands out in your mind that happened on a racetrack that could have, been a bad situation, but was handled with the utmost deserving care that it required to make sure that everybody got out of that situation?
Yeah, there was a guy, back in the mini stock days, there was a guy that had another problem with another person, and while the other guy was on the hook being towed out of the track, this other driver decides to use retaliation with his car against the other guy, and the other guy was sitting outside of his car and kind of got smashed in between the wall and the mini stock, and they got him out of the car pretty good and everything, and the guy that was in the wrong of it, they barred him. I don't think he ever got to be able to come back to the track. Like times that guys couldn't get out of the car, and Mark Toulis here a couple of years ago flipped. They did whatever they could to get him out of the car, and he escaped with a broken neck without he didn't lose his life or nothing, but you got to hand it to Farmer City. If they wouldn't have done what they did in time, he might not have been here today.
Right.
And everybody was worried that he was dead.
Yeah, that's a scary situation, and I remember what you're talking about there, and yeah, that was. They did exactly what they needed to do in just the right amount of time, because, like you said, the clock was ticking in that particular situation, and it was good things happened that day, and that's what we want to see. But we got a special co-host with us on here this week, Kenny Carroll. I'm sure you've heard that name from the Lucas Oil Speedway, haven't you?
Yeah. I stay up on tracks around me. Some of them are the tracks I haven't been to, but. The Facebook really opens your eyes to what tracks are doing around you and how they get involved in things and their programs and stuff like that.
Now, let's get a little bit of a roundtable going here. You and Kenny are both, your seat guys. Let me ask you both this question, and Kenny, I want you to answer this first. When you look around at what's going on now as far as the different tracks that you travel to, are you seeing things at tracks that one track leans real heavy towards one certain aspect of safety, whereas you go to another track and it could be a little lacking? And if so, what would you like to see across the board that would be implemented at every single racetrack we go to across the country?
I would say, with the coming about of Rodger doing his deal with the emergency services, I guarantee the tracks that don't use him have probably never called to find out what it costs or how much of a service. Honestly, we are really lucky that here that there's not that he services almost every track in my immediate area. They do such a good job that in even the small tracks he's been showing up at. So it must not, the pricing must be good. I'm sure it's based on number of men and all that kind of stuff. But you got to get a better insurance break, you would think. For the track as well. So, there's no such thing as too many fire extinguishers. I know it was mandated that every car had to have a fire extinguisher on board, and honestly, that's not anymore, and you don't see them as often anymore. It's something that, everybody should be somewhat ashamed of, probably. But,
absolutely. I believe every single car in every single class, no matter what it is, whether it's dirt, pavement, straight line, no matter what, every single race car that has the potential to, for what happened to happen again, should be equipped with a halo system or a fire extinguisher within reach of the driver. And why that is not mandated into every single sanctioning body's rule book, front page, line 1, number 1, is beyond me. I mean, fire is the most dangerous thing when it comes to racing. And let me ask you both this on that subject. When it comes to fire, is that the first and foremost thing on a driver's mind?
Yeah, I'd have to say so. I'd have to say it was probably about the scariest thing you'd probably ever experience in a car.
Now, Bruce, same question for you. I mean, if there's that one thing that you want to see implemented across the board at every single racetrack, what is it for you?
I really don't. Maybe make sure that your lead's all secure pretty well, and you don't have no loose bumpers hanging around or nothing like that. I mean, I see a lot of tracks that'll let somebody go around or drive their car around with body parts just flying and bumpers about hanging off, and that's a fan hazard there too. All it has to do is just fly off and bounce over the fence or get kicked up by a tire or something like that. And I just see a lot of tracks will let a guy run and not black flag him when they should be black flagged, or at least let him pull in and yank it off and finish the race. But I'd say that'd probably be one of the, as far as an all-around issue, probably for the fans and the drivers and everybody all together. That'd probably be my top priority.
And that's a very good point. I'm glad that you brought that up, because if you don't know what he means when he says chunks of lead, sometimes these cars and excuse me, allergies are catching me, man. These chunks of lead, what they are is they're exactly that. They're chunks of lead. They're weight, and that's the only thing they're there for. And as we evolve and racing gets faster and faster and faster, and these chassis are being made lighter and lighter and lighter, most of your sanctioning bodies do have a weight rule. And even with a complete turnkey roller with you in it, sometimes you're still not making weight, and some of these guys have to put weight in their car. Or there are some classes that, like the B mods, where you have to have I believe it's a 50-pound mid plate between the firewall and the drive shaft. And it's interesting that you say that, because it is true. These guys get out there and they start rubbing, and sheet metal starts to come off, and you can see a guy rolling down the back straightaway at 80, 90 mile an hour with a 6-foot-long piece of sheet metal dangling in the wind. That's essentially a guillotine if it comes off and flies into the stand. So that also is a very good point that you bring up. Kenny, what's your take on that? I mean, as a driver, does it make you feel uneasy whenever you see you're following a guy that's got pieces and parts falling off his race car?
Well, that's such a fine line that everybody has to walk. It's no different than following a car that's been smoking for 5 laps. Is it fixing to blow up and throw stuff all over the track? It's such a judgment call, and you have no time to make it. That's a job that I would not envy having. Yes, if a bumper's hanging off, that's one thing. If it's that black and white. But as far as the sheet metal, that's just a call that the flagman's got to make, and it's his ball game. You just got to satisfy him. So there's not much you can do about that. Like that Halo system. Those things have gotten drastically cheaper. I've looked at those several times over the years. And, anymore, honestly, with a race car, it's more about time. It takes so much time to build a car and put them in that I think that holds people back as much or more than the money, And plus, there's all old horror stories that you can't breathe when they go off and all that stuff. But I'm sure that stuff's come along so much lately that's not such a big deal. And I'll be honest, I'm going to probably look at some of that kind of stuff. This new car's a little snugger than I'm used to, so it might be something that I look up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as far as let's bring on our producer, Mr. CJ Sports, Jason McMillan. Every week we like to have him on towards the end of the show, and he's a stick and ball guy. I mean, he is the equivalent to the stick and ball side of sport as to what we are when it comes to the racing side. There's not much that he can't sit there and talk with anyone about for hours on any given topic, but we always like to bring him in since he's kind of getting new into the dirt racing scene and ask him exactly what it is that he's learned. Jason, we've had some of the best drivers from each different class from across the country on tonight, each with a different perspective of safety and what they think each track should do, and a lot of really good information on tonight's show. What was you able to take away from any of this?
Many times on the shows that I've been, either it be the One Cent Nation Sports Show or Rubbing His Racing or hanging out with you guys here at the Dirt Talk Hour or Racing with Big Sweat on Thursday nights, I've always pointed out that how safe the sport has gone, the direction it has gone, and it's unfortunate that things are overlooked until it's too late. And as proactive as this sport is, and as much as they try to make this sport safe, Dale Sr. was a prime example. Didn't think about a safer barrier wall until the unfortunate passing of him. We didn't think about the grass and how that's impactful until we watched Kyle Busch break his feet last year, hitting that wall, and realizing the safer barrier wall needs to be everywhere. There's a lot of things that we don't, unfortunately, catch until somebody pays the price, if it's by death or by a serious injury. And, listening to everybody talk tonight and the unfortunate incident over the weekend, it kind of makes you realize, even though this sport has gone in the direction that it has with safety and come so far. I mean, we watched that F1 wreck, about 3 weeks ago, and he just walked away from that. We watched the same weekend Kyle Larson and Danica hit the wall so hard that all 4 tires came off the ground, and yet they walked away from it. But at the same time, listening to everybody tonight, that we are still leaps and bounds away from where this sport really needs to be when it comes to safety, to ensure that these drivers, their friends, their family, the fans, the officials, everybody is able to go and lay in their bed safe and sound at the end of the night. And I think that listening to Rodger earlier in the show and listening to all these different drivers, there's a lot of great ideas and precautionary things that everybody believes that that need to be taken, and unfortunately it took this this incident this weekend to kind of throw that spark underneath everybody and get everybody motivated once again. But at the same time, it is that spark that unfortunately it took, but it is that spark that I think is going to cause the sport to come up with a few more precautionary innovations to help make the sport even safer than what it has been over the last few years.
Absolutely. And if there was a question for you that, something that was on your mind or something that you had seen that you would like to ask either one of these guys that we got here with us now that knows exactly what every scenario, they have to go through the seat, what would you ask these guys, if there was anything that you could ask them?
It's hard for me to ask this question because I have so many guests come on my show alone that I ask the same question. What could be done differently? How safe do you feel in that car? Watching these different incidents, does it make you feel safer, or does it make you kind of think maybe I should reconsider what I'm doing, or maybe find a way to change what's going on? So off the top of my head, I can't think of a question, but that's because I do this so many times that I've had, the question kind of answered numerous of times over and over. So, I mean, trying to think of a question off the top of my head, I really can't think of one. And fortunately, I've not seen, and a lot of it had to do with your post alone kind of pushed me away from not looking the video up and not seeing what actually happened. You describing it in your Facebook post of not being able to sleep and hearing the screams and everything else and seeing the incident. It really made me I've not even attempted to look it up. I don't want to know. There's been other incidences like that just because the graphics, and the cautionary from people that I know about the videos, I have stayed away from it. And I'm sure if I saw the video, I'd probably have even more, a question or two that would apply to tonight. But because more specifically what you posted, that prevented me to even Google or even try to look it up. So, from that aspect, it makes it a little bit harder for me once again to ask the question because you kind of prevented me from even wanting to look at the video.
That's good because that's not something I would wish for anyone to see. And in closing, Bruce, you have any final thoughts? Anything you'd like to put out there as far as what happened and your thoughts on it before we get out of here?
Well, like you said, I didn't really get on there and look at the video for nothing, and I've really been busy. I usually like to get on there. Sometimes, it's best not to even see stuff like that because it reminds you what could happen if you ever get in that situation or whatever. And nobody really wants to see nothing like that. But yeah, I mean, from what you said, if it took them 5 minutes to get to that guy, that's ridiculous right there.
Yeah,
but
safety measures, and that was the whole point of tonight's show is to everyone that listens to all the different stories and the advice and the professionals that we've had on, and the national touring guys that see different things all over the country. They were kind of able to give their side of what they go through and what guys in their class goes through. And, if anybody can take away, like promoters, track safety personnel, like any of the tips that any of these guys, and Jeff Swindell was another one. I mean, he's always been an innovator in safety and sprint cars, and there's things that he designed 30 years ago that they are still in use today, and it's all about to keep the driver safe. And if anybody can take away anything from a tragic situation, that's a positive. As long as we can put one foot in front of the other and move forward and find ways to work together as a community and prevent things like this from happening again, then this was a success. This show came about, and at the last minute, we had a last-minute cancellation, and we were scrambling for ideas, and I was hesitant to do it, and the more I thought about it, the more different people that, and Kenny, I really got to thank you for putting us in touch with Rodger, because him being involved with your home track and Lucas Oil Speedway, if there was ever a guy to talk to shed some light and put something positive into something negative, he was the perfect guy to have on our show tonight. So I got to thank you for that, sir. And I must ask, what did you think of your first full show as a host, and how did it go for you?
Oh, it was really cool. If I would have had a little more heads up, I probably would have done a little more background and had a little more papers strung out in front of me. So I was a little panicked and trying to get everything prepared. But I enjoyed it. It was a really, really good time.
Well, I'm going to interject, and I'm going to say something. And what you just said hits the nail right on the head about live media, having time. You can prepare, and you can prepare, and you can prepare, and you'll think that you'll know what you got coming and what you're in store for. But when you're doing something live, things happen at the drop of a hat, and it's how well you respond to that and how well you can take the ball and run with it as it's rolling. And, like you said, no time, and I think you did a great job, man. I mean, your questions were on point. I mean, you was able to hold good conversation, and you did just fine, man. I don't think you're going to have any problem when it comes to the side of doing race media. I think you're going to have a very successful show there, sir.
Well, thank you. Honestly, it's no different than what I do now. I don't know how many times I've dreaded all Sunday night worrying about where we were all going to go Monday morning with all my excavating crew, whether it be a water leak or something. And then, I stay up all night, can't sleep about it. And then at 6:30 in the morning, one phone call will totally change every bit of my plan. And now you've got 6 or 8 guys sitting there that you're paying hourly looking at you that you got to fix all that. So I'm pretty used to being light on my feet. And, everybody says, what's your plan? I go, well, my plan is to live through the next 10 minutes. After that, I'll just roll with it. It's kind of like when you go into one in a race car, how you going to make the car turn? Oh, I'll figure that out when I get there.
Right. Well, Kenny, let me ask you the same question we asked Bruce. Hearing all these guys tonight talk about this, is there anything that you're going to be able to take away from any of this and implement into your racing program?
Oh, everybody should always take a hard look at their safety. And the longer you race, the less you're probably going to. And that shouldn't be. But that's, at the end of the day, humans are animals, and they're lazy, and they're only going to do what they're absolutely forced to do. So everybody can try to be as proactive as they want. The only way anything's going to get done is if it hurts somebody or someone. It's not like people are different now than they were 100 years ago. That's just how it is. My way I look at it is I got to find out things that I think I'm comfortable with and I can live with that and go out there and have a good time. The worst thing you want to do is be the most scared of your shadow guy in the world and be that one guy you hear about that falls down in the shower and kills himself. That you can't live life like that either, so you got to find that gray area that you're happy with and live life the best you can.
Absolutely, sir.
Hey, Dan,
well, I want to yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
There was one thing I was wanting to mention about the safety. I think the communication with the flagman is probably just as important as anything. I've been to a few tracks where flagman's totally blind to what's going on and won't throw a caution or a red flag out for a couple laps.
Right.
And I think that was from a lack of communication.
Yeah, and we had talked about that earlier on the show when Kenny and I were talking about show preparation and what it takes to pull off a show, and communication is key, and that you can pretty much add that to anything in life, and marriage, job, work, hobbies, whatever it is. Communication has to be there. Everybody's got to be on the same page and train. Just put yourself through as much knowledge as you can to prepare yourself for any situation that might arise. And like Jeff Swindell said, take a day, practice, run through those scenarios. Drivers, go through those scenarios in your car. Blindfold yourself. Make it a completely dark situation. Make it as close to an on-track scenario as you can. And practice getting out of that car. Anything you have to do through a certain circumstance or situation to better improve your chances of getting out safely, but to also improve the first responders that are there to help you. I mean, the faster you're able to calm yourself and think for yourself, the better off others around you who are trained are going to be there to assist you. So, whatever you can do to take from a negative situation, and implement it into your everyday life and your racing program, then by all means, it should be done. And we hope somebody and everybody was able to take something away from this show. It was put together last minute, and I think it went very well. Got to thank Bobby Pierce for taking the time to come on to give us his thoughts on this. And again, a huge thank you to Rodger Bennett from EMSS. We will get his stuff up on our website so that any track promoter, safety personnel anywhere across the country, you can give this guy a call, and when you have questions and you're looking for advice, you can rest assured you're getting it from the absolute best in the industry. So, Jeff Swindell, we want to thank you for coming on and giving us some open wheel insight into the things that you've already got on the drawing board that you're working on, and we can always count on Jeff Swindell to be working on something to keep these guys safe in a car. Bruce Malone, I want to thank you for coming on and giving us some insight into the modified aspect of things and sharing some of your stories with us. And Kenny Carroll, you did an amazing job, sir. Very well done for your first full time. And man, anytime you ever want to come back and do this with us, man, you are more than welcome.
Hey, man, I had a blast. I really appreciate the opportunity. I don't know how many people you asked ahead of me, and I was the first fool to say yes, but I'm really happy you guys called, and I had a good time. Well, I appreciate it, man. That means a lot.
Well, I appreciate you doing it, sir. What's that, Bruce?
I had fun also.
Oh, I'm glad, man. Anytime you're listening to the show and we're discussing a topic that's you've got some good knowledge and insight to, man, you can always feel free to give us a call, and you will always be welcome back here with us on the Dirt Talk Hour. So for everybody involved here at the 110 Nation, YellowCautionFlags.com, the Dirt Talk Hour, the Dirt Life, we want to send our deepest wishes and our sympathies and our condolences to the Floyd family and Charlie for a speedy recovery, and we're praying for you, man. We really hope you pull through this, and I know the entire racing family is keeping a close eye on you and your progress, and we're thinking about you, brothers. So for Chris Creighton, Jason McMillan, and myself, Damian Bean, that is the Dirt Talk Hour. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll see y'all next week at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time, where we're going to throw back some beer and sling some dirt. So until then, we'll talk to you later.
Hey, Raleigh, paying too much for your wireless bill is not cool, which is why millions of people have switched to Sprint this past year. To celebrate, you can save 50% on most Verizon rate plans when you switch to Sprint. All this on the Sprint network, which is faster plus more reliable and has better coverage than ever. Why wouldn't you switch today? Hurry, visit a Sprint store or Sprint.com to learn more. Limited time only, offer coverage not available everywhere. Excludes taxes, surcharges, add-on, and premium content. Subject to new line port-in, activation fee, and credit. See website for eligible plans. Savings until March 31st, 2018 after pay full amount. Restrictions apply.